Welcome to the Steve Show. Today I have Jeffrey Hayzlett, and we're going to talk about at the C level, how do we start experiencing more in our life, having the balance between work and life, and be able to have more of what you want at the C level. Well, welcome to the show, Jeff.
It's good to be here.
Beautiful. Jeff and I are really excited. Do you want me to say Jeff or Jeffrey?
I get paid more for Jeffrey.
Okay, let's go with that then. So, Jeffrey, and thank you for including me in C-Suite. I'm excited to be able to help C-level executives. And the big thing for me is having had my ad agency, and that's when we met, I think, when you were at Kodak as Chief Marketing Officer. I worked way too damn hard, man. And so now in my life, I'm looking at balances. And I think more executives are looking at that. You work so hard to get to the point in your career, and then what, right?
Yeah, then what? And why do it all for that? And then when you're all done, you have nothing, you know?
Right.
Years and years ago, a friend of mine by the name of Stephen Covey did a book called 7 Habits of Highly Successful People, one of the greatest books of all time. And I shared the stage with Stephen many, many times. And one of the things that he said, and just always stuck with me, was 4. That you need to have balance, and balance, you know, much like a teeter-totter or one of those teeter-totters that goes like this, you need that kind of balance, because when you push on, you know, say one side, like this side, something's got to give over here, and that's the way life is. Too much work gives up your family. Too much play, you know, something else gives. And so one of the things that I thought was really interesting, he said, you have to have a balance in your business, your friends, your family, and your spirituality. And I've always tried to stick with that, because I'm also an addict. I'm an addict to work. I love to go to bed at night so I can hurry up and sleep and get going the next day. But at the same time, I have to remember all those different pieces to my life, because there's more to me than just that. Yeah.
Let's go back in time. Like, so when you were when you were active as a C-level executive,
and still active as a C-level.
Well, yeah, I guess you're right. I think of it as your company. I mean, you are.
But I was it's true, a Fortune 100 C-level executive. Different, $17 billion budgets as opposed to a lot less budget today. But in terms of running my own operation, but the job is the same. So whether you're a small business or a big business, it's just zeros.
It is. And so I'm curious, and thanks for clarifying that. So when, being at the C level, like, how do you look at balancing it while still yet growing the business? Because, so many people think there's this misconception, if I let my eye off the ball, or if I give myself time to go on a longer holiday, or I do this, that I'm going to lose business. So how do you deal with that growth, because continual growth, right? And then, yet you still have that balance.
Well, let's be clear. You might lose business. And by the way, if you don't take care of your family, you might lose your family. Or your wife, or your kids, or the relationship. So it's really always about conditions of satisfaction, right?
True.
Condition of satisfaction for your work, condition of satisfaction for your spirituality, for your family, for your friends. So you have to really know what those are. So what are your conditions of satisfaction? And then you measure and do the things based upon those things. Then you can really get it done.
So about 2 years ago, I made a clear decision that I was willing to slow down my business, even if I made less, because I wanted to be with my kids. And my kids are younger right now, so I want to have that time. And you know what, though? It forced me to work smarter, and I've actually, some of my business, one of them I doubled.
Well, people have to make those decisions all the time. You don't always see them because you're not in those situations. But let's imagine my wife and I chose a different type of life because we wanted our children to have a more stable kind of life. When I grew up, my father was in the military. We went from place to place to place to place. Now, a lot of people would say, well, that wasn't healthy. Well, no, it was healthy. It's what I knew. Now, it was different. As opposed to she lived on a farm and never went anywhere else from that county. Nothing wrong with that. I find that kind of weird, or a little house on the prairie kind of thing. It's just different, right? It doesn't make it right or it's wrong. So what we decided, though, when we wanted our children to grow up in South Dakota, yet I had these big jobs all over the world. So what we decided to do was to make a sacrifice, and we had to make certain sacrifices. That means I would have to travel to Australia, have a meeting, turn around and come right back that same day. Wow. So I could make the kids' games, or we'd have a negotiation with the children about what we could do and what we couldn't do. Now, if you don't want these things, if you don't want us to have this, then, it's okay. Then Dad will just stay home and not do those things. Or, you have to make those things.
Yeah, what do we all want as a family unit? I mean, obviously you're looking at those balances. So how was it for you to make those decisions? So let's say, I'm just going to bring up some examples. So like family doesn't want you to do something, but the business requires it. Like, how did you balance that?
Well, you have to, against the things that you want to drive in your life. I mean, So for me, we had certain conditions of satisfaction that we wanted to have in our life. And so my wife and I made those decisions together mutually, because that's the way we do things. I don't arbitrarily just say this, no, I'm taking that job and doing that. And I know there's some men that do that, some women who do that. So we have to have those kinds of hard discussions about what it is that you want in life, and what kind of partner am I going to be? What kind of father am I going to be? And I want to be better than my own father, so I had to do certain things differently.
Right. And then, so I guess, where does that teeter into, like, working as smart as you can? So, like, what were the areas, or if there's even one, that you can suggest that people can start working smarter?
So it always becomes focus. Focus. In my book, Think Big, Act Bigger, and the rewards of being relentless, because it's not the lucky who win, it's the relentless, right? Day in and day out.
Yeah.
So for our biggest things that we all have to do is focus, right?
Right.
And really know what's important for us in terms of our goals for our businesses, our goals for our family, our goals for our children, our goals for life, whatever it might be. So what are those goals? And then we have to have focus, because here's what happens. There's a movie called Up. Okay?
Yeah.
In the movie Up, there's this Ed Asner character, old man, and this young scout, and they go on this adventure to Paradise Falls.
Right.
And they run into this dog called Doug the talking dog.
Right.
Remember that?
I do.
And the Doug runs up, and he's got this collar on that his evil master has outfitted on him,
Right.
that allows you to hear his thoughts. And he comes up and goes, "Oh, you seem very nice.
Yeah.
You smell like vanilla," or something like that. You remember that?
I do.
It's really fun.
I got little ones, man.
Exactly. It's a great movie.
Yes.
And then he says, he goes, "I'm a dog, and you can hear me because my master has given me this collar." And he goes, "Squirrel."
Yeah.
All right? That's what happens in business all the time. That's what happens in life. We start chasing this or chasing this or chasing this. And it's real important for us, and it's really important for business people, I think, especially when it comes to your business, to have the focus, right?
Right.
And so, but even on your business, apply the same thing to your life, to the things that are important for you in your life. And things start putting, falling in place the way you'd like to have them.
Right.
And you can have it all.
Right, you can.
You really, truly can. You can have it all. Or you can have, something that's healthy and good the way you want it to be.
That's beautiful. Yeah. And by having that focus in business, you're going to grow. By having the focus in family, you're going to grow. And there's that saying, I don't even know who said this, but where your focus goes, energy flows.
Oh, which is really cool.
It's
right.
It's exactly
hammer behind the nail.
Yeah.
Or, wood behind the arrow.
Yeah.
All these kinds of things are like that. There's a lot of real, truth to that.
Right. It's beautiful. And so what I want to do is like reach out to as many executives, and that's why I'm excited about CSuite, because this is an opportunity where you're bringing so many C-level executives together and being able to help them. So maybe share a little bit about your vision of CSuite, because this is like, what, 2 years now?
We have 2 years, and we've established the CSuite Network, a trusted network for the most powerful executives in the world. So if you're a VP or higher in a company of $5 million or greater, we want to talk to you. We want to create a safe environment, much like, I don't want to say it's a country club, but a place to gather, a community for folks that says, we will let you in, but you must be this tall.
Right.
And the reason we do that is because we want everyone to have a trusted environment. And if I am in a room full of the same kinds of people, then I know I can have certain kinds of conversations. And that's really what this is about. To be able to share information, to be able to learn from one another, to be able to cheer and to network and do business. And with other places that are out there, like LinkedIn and others, I don't know who's coming at me.
Right.
In fact, most executives, as we know, today don't even put their real address in there. They put a second, or not even a secondary, a third or fourth or fifth email that they rarely even check, because they just don't want to be bothered because of the people who are trying to sell to them. So this is a really trusted network. And then what we do is we give them content through CSuite TV, much like we're doing right now.
Yep.
The CSuite Book Club, the CSuite Radio, which is podcast content on everything from lifestyle to learning to education, management. And then we have all of our meetings that we do all over the world, over 150 meetings that we'll be doing this year.
Wow.
Our councils of different groups and verticals of CMOs, CFOs, chief digital officers, women in the boardroom, women corporate directors, a whole host of different groups. And then we also have a concierge. The concierge is the services that we provide, especially because we know how tough it is to be in this. It's not an easy thing to be in the C-suite. It's without questions. I don't want to say that, we have privileges too,
right.
you know, and but we've earned those privileges, and there's nothing wrong with that. But we also have to make a lot of decisions, and so what we try very hard with the C-Suite Network is to help you and other executives who are part of it be the most strategic person in the room. You know, we're not the smartest.
Right.
I'd like to think I was, but I'm not.
Right.
But my job is to be strategic. And in the C-suite, that's what we have to be able to focus on, and we need to focus on it as much as possible. And the demands on our time are so great,
right?
You know, because from the time we wake up, when we get into a meeting, our time is spoken for. Now, you'd like to think as the boss or the C-suite, the CEO, the CFO, CMO, that you can make those changes. You really can't, because there's lots of things that are duties, responsibilities, accountability that you have to have in that position. So therefore, you can't always know what's going on outside the world. We help you by channeling information, giving you services, and providing advisors like the C-suite advisors and others that help you to become and stay the most strategic person in the room.
And that's brilliant. I mean, I can tell you, like, I've had one-on-one coaching, consulting for myself to grow my businesses and my life. And I've also noticed when I'm in a mastermind or in a mentorship group, it's, you know, I can tell you time and time again, it's the questions somebody else asks that I wouldn't ask. And even in my mind, I've had someone brings up a question, I'm like, oh, I got that.
Right.
And then the synergy of the room, I'm like, what? I didn't ever think of that. So some of my most profound shifts in business and in my personal life have been from other people's questions. And I think and I've been to the events and I'm participating in C-Suite, so I can speak to it, but I wanted to hear your point of view. Is like that dynamics of having all this group that you're pulling together that's never been done before, because you have like a mix of it, like you said on LinkedIn.
But there's also groups for CEOs, groups for CFOs, groups for CMOs. But what we're finding more and more, it's a team.
Right.
I've never, every time as we started, and we almost called this the CEO Network, and we actually own those domains.
Okay.
And we own the PowerPoints and all the stuff. And then the night before, I was doing my show on Bloomberg. I turned to the team, and everybody kept telling me about their team. And the CEOs were saying, geez, Jeff, I'd like to do this, but I'd really like to bring my chief financial officer, my VP of finance, my VP of sales, my chief operating officer. Right. And we said, wow, we should pay attention to what these people are saying.
What they're asking.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so what we're doing is building that network of team. And many times you see the CFO become the CEO.
Right.
The chief sales officer become the chief marketing officer.
Especially a marketing officer going to CEO too.
Exactly. Yeah. Chief information officer sometimes becoming the chief technology. So why not include them all?
Right.
And it's to quote a former presidential candidate, it takes a village, so to speak. You know?
Right. Right, absolutely. And so you get that synergy. And then that also comes to help, like what we were talking about, work-life balance. You get to be with your peers, and you're like, well, how do you do it? And you just get that engagement. So
well, and that's the thing. Look, it's a very trusted environment, and that's important. You talked about masterminds. Well, C-suites don't have masterminds typically, right?
It happens in the hall, though.
It happens. It actually happens in the C-suite.
Right.
It happens in the boardroom.
Right.
It happens in those meetings, the strategic meetings that the companies have all the time. But sometimes it's very helpful to get an outside experience. And how do you get an outside experience? Who do you trust?
Right.
Well, who you trust is a person just like you.
Right.
A person, so, we help you divide up between billion-dollar businesses, or talking to billion-dollar businesses, 100 mid-cap companies, mid-cap, and industries by roles and by geography.
Right.
Because even big companies need to talk to small companies in Kansas City. Right. So that's what we really try to do, is bring the community together in a very trusted environment. So we put that red velvet rope so you know that everybody's in the room deserves to be there.
Right. And then you're like, so it's already vouched for you. Like you can go in protected. It's like, I guess, a metaphor of like going through a metal detector, like, okay, people aren't packing, but you're in the room.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
There's
no nunchucks coming out.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting. When I'm the CMO of a Fortune 100 company, and I know another CMO at another Fortune 100 company, there's an unwritten understanding.
With all this, what is most important is around, the content that you're delivering with C-Suite?
It's absolutely critical, because it's changing and changing and changing. But at the same time, there's certain things the same way. So the C-Suite today is still a little bit older, still a little bit more skewed men than women, although that is changing. So while everybody else is moving one way or another, some of that stuff has to stay traditional, but yet some of it has to be new, like educating people on video through TV.
Right.
That's a lot different than it was. Used to be we would do TV and you had to go home You had to turn it on at a certain time, and you had to watch it, and that's when you watched it,
Right.
right? Now you can watch it on your train ride home, or in a plane, or in
Right.
bed, or wherever you'd like to be able to watch this type of show. So what we're trying to do is, again, let's examine it very much like a great restaurant. Now, I'm sure that you like some fine things in life, right? And when you go to a certain restaurant, that's one of your favorites. And when you go to that restaurant, they know who you are.
Right.
And when you sit down, they bring over you your favorite drink, your favorite scotch, or set you in a certain table because they know you and your wife like to sit there. The same thing is here. And what we're going to see is content delivered by your behavior and by knowing you better. And that's what we intend to do. So continue to make it the most strategic. And so you're going to see the content change and shift in the way it's being delivered and how it's being consumed as we get to a younger demographic, as we get to a demographic that becomes more accustomed to it.
Right.
You know, because you can't change behavior overnight. So what we do is adapt the behavior and predict it based on your usage and the way you do it, and then continue to feed you that kind of information.
Which, this is, not just for what the value of C-suite is, but just like something for all companies to be thinking about. I mean, this is what's happening right now, and
Right.
how things are being consumed, and how we're looking to get information and be able to just get it for what we want. No more mass communication. It's like laser focused and being able to,
Years ago they were talking about segment marketing. In fact, I even talked to somebody the other day and they were talking about segment marketing. I'm going, well, dude, segment marketing of one. That's really what this is about. This is where we're going. So you really can, if I want to find women who are less than 14, size 14 shoe, left-handed, and play softball, you can find them, right?
Yeah, and then now you're talking to who you need to talk to, which speeds everything up. It maximizes your exposure of expenses or cost for that marketing, and then also can maximize your ROI because,
Yeah, and it shifts the model too. So before we were always truly about eyeballs and ears, clicks.
Right.
Now we're about hearts and minds.
Right.
And so you don't need a million clicks, you just need 5.
Right.
And so that's what we've realized with C-Suite TV and C-Suite Radio with our podcast, the book club, and all the things that we're doing in delivering the content is let's be not shotgun, not rifle, microscopic.
Well, and I like that you brought up the heart, because there was a time as technology got so advanced right now and all this social media craze, everyone's doing like scattergun everywhere, and now I think it's like, let's utilize the technology, but then let's bring it back to the heart of like, who are we connecting with? Why are we connecting with them? And make it meaningful.
I'll give you a great line that I've coined over the time with all the work that we do.
Yeah.
It is, content is king, activation is queen, but context is the kingdom.
Right.
So, and that's really what the C-Suite Network's about is, look, serving and giving the context of the information, giving the context of the value, giving the context of the services, giving the context of the relationships, giving the context of everything into the right place at the right time, and that's really what it's about. So when you're being inundated by, people who want to be your coach or trainer, these are friends of ours. They're advisors, and we have vetted them for you, and you can trust it. Again, the most trusted network of executives in the world.
That's beautiful. And I would say if you're out there and you're striving to be at the C level, then you should be following what C-Suite's doing, because that's going to give you clues on how to get your career. And those of you that are there, but you're looking for that peer support, what do I do? Because I know, the last thing I wanted to touch on before we wrap this interview is, because as I've worked with C-level executives, sometimes you're sitting there alone, because if something is not going well, like you don't want to report to your board, you don't want your team to know, and you're sitting there looking in the mirror saying, how am I going to pull this together? And so I think that's another thing that this group gives, because maybe you will open up a little bit more and get a little bit more help.
It's a very lonely place. A lot of people think it's very busy and a lot going on. If you ever saw the show West Wing, in the West Wing back in the days, they'd show the White House with people rushing around it. It's not like that. It's very quiet.
Right.
There aren't a lot of people. And on the C-suite floors, on my floor on the State Street in Rochester at the world headquarters of Kodak, there were 4 people on the floor.
Right.
On the whole floor.
It's crickets.
So it's crickets, and it's a lonely place, and you're having to make decisions. So it's great to be able to make those decisions knowing there are other people you can call on as friends, as colleagues, who have been there before, because they've been there before.
Right. which I think this is part of being human, and it's something we all have to do so we can, live a better life. I think people are tired of just like working really hard, and then what? Then you retire, and then most likely you die because it's the end. So this is like awesome what you're doing, because we can have great business, do great things, move things, and also have the life that we desire.
Exactly, because it's not just about the business. I can also ask you, hey, how did you do this in your own personal life? Or someone's going through whatever it might be, even personal relationships. It's good to know you can trust that person because they're having the same kinds of trials and tribulations that you have, and they've struggled with it, and then they found a solution.
It's beautiful. And where would you suggest people start if they haven't even...
Come to CSuiteNetwork.com. You can find us. Watch us on CSuite TV, CSuite Radio. You just type in #CSuite. You can find us.
Boom, you're going to find it. And I'm so thankful that you came on the show today. And anything you guys want, more content, there'll probably be future engagements with Jeffrey and I. And so if there's other questions we didn't answer, go ahead and share it with us. Also, let us know what was the greatest value you got from this. And until next time, choose gratitude and create freedom.